The following episode is about a case that is not only heartbreaking, but highly controversial due to the nature of the crime. Our goal is to present the facts and let you form your own opinion if you find it necessary to form an opinion at all. We do not take a stand during this episode because we don't want to add color to the case. That's what the mainstream media does. The bottom line is someone lost their life and someone's life was forever changed. We pride ourselves on deep investigative journalism and fact-finding, and that is what you'll find in the following episode. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Psychopedia podcast. I am your co-host, Hank Sinatra, here with my distinguished co-host.
Investigator Slater.
Looked up synonyms for illustrious.
Nice.
I found that one. Illustrious is good, but it's like...
No, distinguished makes me feel like...
Yes, very much. I get it.
Learned.
Yeah, distinguished.
And like I have a room full of accolades and trophies and awards. I don't, but I feel like I do.
You have a head full of accolades and awards.
I had a head full of something.
Your self-esteem is off the charts. Unfounded, but still pumping nonetheless. And I am sorry for saying that because your self-esteem is well-deserved. Maybe you derive self-esteem from this, how hard you work, just not this particular...
I don't even have high self-esteem.
You think you could tip over a cow.
That's different. I struggle with self-esteem. I struggle with like, how many times do I ask, is this right? Do I look right? Is
Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
You're suffering from big ego, low self-esteem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, big ego? I don't know about that.
I could fucking push over a cow.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
It's, by the way, it's not pointing you out or singling you out. That is like the human condition.
Yeah.
Is the battle or the pull between those two. And as you shrink the ego and build the self-esteem, the void gets smaller. And then it's like, oh, I think I feel peace.
Oh, God, bring that over to me.
I know. I'm not going to get into it right now because I want to, I don't want to do too much. But I do want to say welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. If this is your 100th time here, welcome home.
Freaks.
And it would mean a lot to us, right, as the new year begins, if you would subscribe to the podcast. Like the way that you guys feel about getting episodes, that's how we feel about seeing numbers move. I don't know how else to explain it except to say that. Should it mean something? I don't know, but it does. So it makes us feel good seeing the reviews and the subscribers come in and the downloads and all that. So share it with somebody, just...
Yeah, it helps us rage against the machine as well. So any amount will help us. You like that?
I want to do Bulls on Parade right
Let's
now.
go.
Really. Do you know I almost exploded to Bulls on Parade in 11th?
No, but it doesn't surprise me.
I was at a track meet and I was throwing shot put and discus at the time. I was going up for shot put. I had VOD shaved into the side of my head.
So you were cool.
Yeah, and all the people at the meet were calling me VOD or VOD. They were like, "Hey, VOD." I was like,
"You down with VOD?"
Yeah, you know me. Ugh. But anyway, I listened to Bulls on Parade on repeat. I threw the shot put further than I've ever thrown it before in my entire life. I
believe it.
On one.
I work out to that song and Guerrilla Radio. Turn that shit up.
Yeah, it's good. Have you ever listened to Inside Out?
Sorry, I hesitated for a second because I was thinking.
It might be Inside. It's Zach De La Rocha's band before Rage Against the Machine. Oh, it's good.
I will give it a listen.
You'll give it a listen. So, if you love us and you're not getting enough of what you need, you know where to go. Maybe you don't. But if you don't, go on over to patreon.com/psychopediapod for, more content that you could possibly ever imagine coming through straight to your earballs and eyeballs.
And in this new year, we plan to just do even more over there.
We got a plan and we're going to execute.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I would like to read off a couple of Patreon names. Just as we do. It's a tradition, and I like it. I like picking names.
I like it a lot.
I like it a lot. Some of them are a little hurtful, but it's okay. We have Iris Miranda.
What's up, Iris?
We have Diddy Did It.
Ooh, tell us how you really feel.
Fast. We have Stephanie.
Hey, Steph.
Just Stephanie.
I dig it.
Drop the.
Drop the effany.
Just Facebook. Jenna Ratliff. Tara Habanera.
Ooh, spicy.
A little bit of a mix. That's probably her first name, but I see what she did. Lord of the Freaks, because the book that we're doing in Tank's book club right now, and Tank and Slater's book club, the Patreon book club, let's remove names from it as to not, spare people's feelings.
I wonder why my self-esteem is in the shitter.
is Lord of the Flies. We're reading that book. We're going to discuss it. It's going to be lit. So join us over there if you want to be part of that Zoom. This one is just, it's maybe the coolest one. Couldn't think of a cool one.
Yes, you can.
I mean, you did, and you nailed it.
Yes.
And the one that hurt me the most, Tank's missing Salem episode, in parens, Scott.
Oh my God, Scott. Hit him where it hurts.
Yeah, you did. So just to clarify on that or give a little context, my first episode of Tankopedia was supposed to be about the Salem witch trial. And as I looked into it, I just didn't care.
Is that why you didn't do it?
Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, I got it. Like a couple of celebrities have ancestors that were involved in it and they did some
That's
things.
like the least interesting part about it. It's fascinating.
I know, but it's also just what you already know. There's not like a whole bunch, because it was a very, very short period of time. It was like weeks.
I know, I don't think people realize that, but it's the way you would have painted the picture that we were excited for.
Hey, it's still on the docket. It's still on the radar.
All right, good.
So maybe I will do that. Scott. Is there anything you'd like to add? Any ado you'd like to pile on top of this ado?
I just want to mention that I am absolutely so excited to be here, which I think you and one of our producers realized the second I sat down to record. I was
Say his name, first of all, Anthony.
Anthony, I'm sorry. I often say Anthony's name. I just didn't. It was a creative choice in the moment.
The twins.
Fuck off. Anthony and you, I think, noticed when we sat down today.
My name.
Oh, God. I don't want to say anything anymore. I just want to leave.
Oh, man, I ruined your excitement. Okay, go. Go. Please. Anthony,
This is like when my kids fight when we're on our way someplace awesome. And I'm like, I don't even want to go now.
Oh, well, that's sad.
I know. Tell me about it.
Well, let's undo that.
All right.
Because you are excited about this case, and you claim that
it's
I know.
It's not even the case, although it's a very topical here and now headlining case.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to be doing what I love with the greatest people in the world.
Same.
Okay, good. That's all I was trying to say.
Same. Well, I was doing it my way.
All right, fine.
I was having a little fun on the ride to the fucking trampoline park. Sorry, Mom.
We're not going now.
So I don't know what's coming, although I may, but I don't know if I know or not.
So
I'm just gonna find out with the rest of you, and I can't wait personally. So without any further business, because she's obviously not problematic at all.
No.
Let's get into this week's episode.
There's no controversy there.
Taylor Shabusiness, hit me.
So I just want to say before we start that, of course, we're going to get into the case and exactly what happened and probably what many of us have been reading about and hearing about.
Yeah.
But I want to provide a deep dive into the background specifically of the victim here so that we understand exactly, who we're looking at today.
Well, that's the most important part. And we're not getting that in mainstream media.
Right. I agree. I always think that knowing the background on somebody helps to paint the clearest picture. So I want to provide that. So anybody, obviously, when you start hearing this and we're going to really deep dive into the background, obviously understand it's to build up to the actual incident, which we will get to.
Okay.
A non-lethal chokehold, often used in various military and law enforcement training, is designed to subdue an individual without causing long-term harm or death.
Maybe.
For U.S. Marines, this technique is taught as a way to incapacitate a suspect or adversary by applying controlled pressure to the neck, specifically targeting the carotid arteries, which supply blood to the brain.
Okay.
The most commonly known form of this technique is the vascular neck restraint or the blood choke.
Mm-hmm.
When properly executed, the maneuver involves positioning the arm around the opponent's neck with the forearm pressed against the carotid arteries and the elbow tucked under the chin.
And the bicep on the carotid artery.
Correct.
Yeah.
This constricts blood flow to the brain, causing the individual to lose consciousness temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
The technique is designed to be released quickly once the opponent is subdued and the perceived threat is neutralized. Marines practice this maneuver during hand-to-hand combat and self-defense training to improve control without resorting to deadly force. And that's the fundamental principle behind this type of non-lethal chokehold, to subdue a person without causing lasting harm. When severe injury, or as in the case we're discussing today, death occurs, it inevitably raises critical questions. Was the use of lethal force intentional or the result of error in execution? And if it was not intentional, what went wrong in the application of this technique?
I have some ideas.
Honestly, today's case raises so many pertinent questions. Because today, we are examining the tragic death of Jordan Neely, a 30-year-old man experiencing homelessness who was known for his work as a Michael Jackson impersonator who struggled with mental health issues. Jordan was killed on a New York City subway in May when Daniel Penny, a 24-year-old former U.S. Marine, restrained him in a chokehold for nearly 6 minutes, a restraint that ultimately proved fatal.
So here's the deal. I have opinions about this case.
Figured you might.
However, I have no idea what happened. So I think like most people that heard about it, they formed an opinion instantly and it galvanized and it like became a part of who they are and they could not be told different. That's not who I am. I'm going to listen and based on information, change my mind or whatever.
Or not.
Or not. Yeah, exactly.
That's why I chose this case, to be honest.
That's a great idea.
I want to present all of the facts as I was able to uncover them. There might be more out there that people are aware of that I haven't found or that are unfolding even after this recording.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot to unpack with this case, and it's more than what the headlines
I'm sure
will reveal. But at the end of the day, there really is a line drawn in the sand, and there's a pool of people on one side and a pool of people on the other. It is like really a very, very
polarizing.
Polarizing case, and with good reason. I understand that.
I would say, if I could speak out of school, which I like, I don't even know what it means, but I like it. I would say the majority of people don't know what happened. They just formed an opinion like I did. They heard that a homeless man was killed by a white guy, a black homeless man was killed by a white guy, and people who are one way felt one way, and people who are the other way felt another way. And I think doing this case objectively is maybe one of the best decisions you've ever made.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. I really do. And that's my goal, is to be objective. I just want to report the facts as I've uncovered them. And then anybody is certainly entitled, obviously, to believe what they want afterwards. Jordan Maurice Kane Neely was born on December 18th, 1992 to Christy Neely and Andre Zachary, and spent much of his early life in Bayonne, New Jersey. Before Jordan's birth, Andre, his father, having lost his own mother when he was just 13 years old, survived by singing with bands in Harlem and in the Bronx, often staying with older band members. As an adult, Andre became part of an R&B vocal quartet called Asante, which not only performed in subway tunnels and on platforms to take advantage of the unique acoustics while entertaining commuters, but also achieved mainstream success as well.
Ashanti. How do you spell that?
Asante with an accent.
Okay, I want to look that up on Spotify.
The group broke through with a Billboard Hot R&B single titled Look What You've Done.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I was joking.
A smooth, sexy track that stayed on the charts for 20 weeks.
Okay.
Their rise to success was built on much more than subway performances. They gained recognition through their strong vocal harmonies and stage presence, which eventually led to significant radio play and chart success. When Jordan was 5, he joined his father at rehearsals in the apartment of one of the band members in Morningside Heights. It was here that Jordan's love for music, and specifically for Michael Jackson, began to take shape. Andre often played VHS tapes of Michael Jackson performing while rehearsing, keeping his son entertained with the King of Pop's electrifying performances.
Jordan was 30 when he died?
Yes.
This was in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to get a handle on which Michael Jackson he...
Yeah, well, he was born in 92 and he was 5 years old around this point.
Okay, so he's dealing with like late stage Michael, which is
one
of my favorite. I mean, Dirty Diana and Man in the Mirror. That was good, Michael.
Man in the Mirror. Oh,
that was
man,
good,
I still
Michael.
get goosebumps.
Oh yeah,
but he could have been watching VHS tapes of older Michael.
Of course,
Just
of course.
Mentioning we don't really know what he was watching, but he was.
I'm just
vibing.
trying to think of what was in the ether at that time.
Okay.
Smooth Criminal.
Alien Ant Farm's version of Smooth Criminal absolutely gets me every time. Sometimes I like to make pretend that I'm a conductor and I'm conducting it.
Really?
That's how into it I get.
That video will be over on Patreon.
It was really embarrassing.
Psychopedia pod if you want to check it out.
I can't believe I admitted that.
We're doing it after we record. Don't even get me. You know what I used to do.
Yeah. I mean, I just know you in general, and I know that that is the least of what happens when you're getting pumped from a song.
No, specifically, I sat in my room on a chair as if I was pregnant, like Whitney Houston, hiding a baby bump with my head down, and went, doom, and I, for hours. Hours.
So I feel a little less weird
Yeah, that's just one thing
being
I've
a
done.
conductor.
Yeah, no, you're cool.
So Christy and Zachary, Jordan's parents, their relationship was volatile.
Mm-hmm.
Christy has been described as straightforward and ambitious, while Andre, whose main source of income actually came from working as a super in buildings uptown and in the Bronx, was more passive and meek. But he also apparently slept around and blew his money, according to one of Christy's friends. In the end, Christy and Andre split up, and Jordan wound up staying with Christy and moving around quite a bit, staying in friends' apartments and various residential shelters in and around New York City. His childhood lacked stability, but apparently never love.
Yeah.
Jordan and his mom were close, though she wasn't around all that much since she worked nights at a telemarketing firm near Herald Square in Manhattan. She'd get back to Jordan at around 10 p.m., just in time to say goodnight to him. Jordan spent his 10th birthday at the Regent Family Residence, which is a transitional shelter on the Upper West Side, while Christy had enrolled in classes to become a paralegal.
So he was home by himself, or he was at the shelter while she was working? Okay.
Shelter. She had friends that they would stay with occasionally as well, and so whoever owned the apartment they were staying in would watch him while she worked, doing what she needed to get by.
Yeah.
So she was taking classes to become a paralegal, and this is where she met a man named Sutherland. Sutherland and Christy got into a relationship and began renting a house together in New Jersey. And even though Jordan had a roof over his head and food in the fridge, things in that house were far from perfect. First of all, Sutherland, who was extremely jealous, possessive, and controlling of Christy, kept a padlock on the main bedroom's door to keep Jordan out, immediately placing a wedge between him and his mother. He was that jealous and that possessive over Christy that he didn't even want Jordan, Christy's son, to have access to her.
So I've heard of that before. I don't know if you know, listening to this, I battled major codependence, insecurity, all that. Even in my most desperate, I had heard stories of either girls who didn't want their boyfriend hanging out with their girl cousin or whatever it was. That, to me, is the least masculine thing maybe I've ever heard. You're scared of her son, bro?
It's abusive.
Oh, I know.
It's just classic abusive behavior. It's possession. It's control. It's I'm calling the shots. I'm deciding who you see.
But I imagine this guy would fancy himself a powerful man who's in charge and doesn't take no shit or whatever. Like, you're a loser.
Blocking a child from seeing his mother.
Yeah, no.
Fuck you, man.
Thanks.
He'd call Christy 10 times an hour whenever she wasn't in his presence, and sometimes she would sleep out just to avoid being near Sutherland. They argued constantly, often in front of Jordan, and Sutherland was abusive and cruel. Then one morning in early April 2007, when Jordan was 14, Christy didn't wake him up for school. Jordan attempted to find out why she was still in bed, but couldn't get into the bedroom because it was padlocked. That same night, Sutherland got into a borrowed car and never came back. For several days, Jordan was completely on his own. He ran out of food and recalled being hungry, cold because the heat shut off, and unsure about what to do, as he apparently told staff at Washington Irving High School in Manhattan that he hadn't seen his mother in days, but nothing was ever done. After a few more days passed, Jordan got on his bicycle and rode to his mother's friend's house in Jersey City. But this friend, Carol Cassie, wasn't home, so Jordan left his bike, hopped the turnstile at Journal Square, and boarded the PATH train to 33rd Street in Manhattan, where he then took the D train to the A to 175th Street in Washington Heights to his grandmother's house. This is a 14-year-old literally trying to get himself around for help.
Yeah.
The following day, Jordan, together with his maternal grandmother, an uncle, and his great-aunt Mildred, went back to his home in Bayonne, New Jersey, where they then filed a missing person report. Sutherland was contacted and claimed that Christy had gone on vacation and that he'd even purchased a suitcase for her.
Did they get through the padlock?
In the bedroom?
Yeah.
I guess.
Oh, okay.
The police were involved at this point.
Okay.
But Jordan knew that this couldn't be right, that she would just up and leave and go on vacation.
Yeah, no.
And while this was all happening, while the police were in his home and they were filing the missing persons report, the TV news was playing in the living room on television. This is This is devastating. Suddenly, a news broadcast came on indicating that an unidentified female body had been found in a black expandable duffel bag by the side of the Henry Hudson Parkway in the Bronx. Wrapped in black plastic, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, the corpse was decomposed, making it challenging for police to make an identification. But there, on the television screen, flashed Christie's belongings, a black and silver belt
Oh, my God.
and a turquoise ring. So Jordan seeing this on television,
Yeah.
and he absolutely fell apart
Of course.
because he knew in that horrible moment that his mother was dead. Sutherland, who was 50 years old by this point, wound up going down for murder after Jordan testified against him at trial when he was 19 years old. That's how long all the proceedings took. By this point, Jordan built a new life working as a Michael Jackson tribute artist in New York City. He bought a Michael Jackson wig, military-type jacket in red and black with gold trim and embellishment, white socks, and a white glove from a costume shop on 14th Street.
Where did he work?
Fantastic. You're going to hear about that.
Okay.
He began his street dancing around age 16, so this was before the actual trial, after approaching a man named Dwayne Blizzard near 40th Street and Broadway.
Real name?
Yep. Oh, sure. I don't know. It could be. Also could not be. Who'd been leading a rotating crew of street performers since the 1980s, and they called themselves the Float Committee. The Float Committee were the dancers you'd often see in the Herald Square subway station or in the streets beneath the bright lights of Times Square. Blizzard saw an opportunity in Jordan. He was nice, respectful, handsome, and talented. After school, Blizzard would help Jordan hone his craft and would invite him up to his apartment in Harlem to study live concert footage of Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And soon enough, Jordan became the headliner in Blizzard's show.
Really?
The act would start with Billie Jean, then go into Thriller, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. And then other dancers, usually b-boy breakdancers, would step out or they would moonwalk out and they would join the act. Pop quiz.
All right. I am hoping that it's what I think it is.
What are the most common street performers in New York City?
Oh, okay.
A, Britney Spears, Mickey Mouse, and Darth Vader.
Oh, okay. A lot of choices coming at me.
Yeah, pay attention.
Britney Spears, Mickey Mouse, Darth Vader.
B, mimes, living bronze statues, and political impersonators.
Okay.
C, Elmo, Spider-Man, and the Statue of Liberty.
See.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to Times Square a
Apparently.
handful of times.
I used to go to Times Square when I was in high school.
But I've seen all those other ones.
Oh, yeah, I know. And there was one time where somebody was walking around with a yellow and white enormous snake. And I still have the picture because you had to pay to take pictures with these people, or in this case, to hold the snake.
Mm-hmm.
So I still have the picture of me in high school with this gigantic snake wrapped around my shoulders.
Really?
Yeah, it was incredible.
Post that on Patreon,
All right.
please.
Okay.
Thank you.
In the years between 2009 and 2012, Jordan became a recognizable figure on the streets of New York, especially after the real Michael Jackson passed away in 2009. Passersby, nice, would video Jordan and take pics of him, and he became a bit of a local celebrity. Jordan's partnership with Blizzard had become so profitable that Blizzard was making plans to take their act to Asia.
Wow.
But then, as Jordan got older, he started disappearing for days, even weeks at a time. Blizzard would refer to this as going ninja. When he'd reappear, neighbors of his grandmother would often find him sleeping in the hallway, and some would even slip him a plate of food. The first recorded instance of Jordan registering at a shelter as an adult was when he was 19 years old. So remember, he'd been street performing since he was about 16.
And disappearing shortly after that.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the Bellevue Men's Shelter, a massive temporary dorm that formerly incarcerated men say is more violent than prison.
Really?
Yep.
Bellevue?
Men's Shelter, yeah. You're thinking of the hospital, which I actually mentioned shortly.
Okay.
Not long after that, Jordan stopped dancing with the Float Committee and went solo in subway cars and on the streets of Times Square, charging tourists $5 or $10 to take a photo with him. Outreach workers, social workers, law enforcement officers, and psychologists often observe a recurring set of traits among individuals who engage in street performances, at least in that area. Many of these individuals have endured significant trauma that affects their ability to form and maintain relationships and sometimes impairs their self-care. Additionally, a large number suffer from mental health issues such as schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, or major depression. These conditions may be exacerbated by past trauma and worsened by the hardships of homelessness, hunger, exposure to the elements, loss and theft of personal belongings, encounters with law enforcement, and barriers to securing housing and support.
Drug use,
and drug use.
Yeah.
The toll of sleeplessness compounds these challenges as well.
Yeah.
Many individuals also turn to substances to dull their pain or to manage their mental health.
That is something I have never even thought of before.
What's that?
The effect of sleeplessness on somebody's ability to function in society.
Tremendous impact. So Dave once was on the brink of psychosis from not being able to sleep. You probably remember.
Yeah.
I think he went 4 days straight or something like that without sleeping, and he literally had to see a neurologist.
Wow.
It was debilitating.
Yeah. I mean, that's torture. Sleep deprivation was one of the war crimes that was committed in Abu Ghraib. It was like that bad. They were waterboarding, no good. Sleep deprivation, because you're not, if you're trying to interrogate somebody and they've been up for 3 days, you're not interrogating that person anymore.
No, you're not.
You're interrogating somebody or something else inside that is just like you said, maybe on the verge of psychosis or past that point.
Right. And it's this sort of complex interaction between factors that can make it difficult for healthcare professionals to arrive at a clear diagnosis for somebody in that position.
Yeah, all adds up.
Exactly. As an adolescent, Jordan was sometimes described as being off. He'd have massive mood swings, was depressive, introverted, and distractible. But by January 2013, Jordan apparently told police on 145th Street that his body was numb and that he was hearing voices. He'd also begun abusing drugs, specifically a synthetic cannabinoid called K2, which exacerbated whatever mental health struggles he'd been grappling with.
That was like a legal drug, right?
I don't know that it was...
Oh, no. K2 is not legal.
No.
That was like the new angel dust. I remember that.
Yeah, so it's also known as spice, and it's a man-made potent chemical designed to mimic the effects of THC, which is the active compound in marijuana. But K2 and other synthetic cannabinoids are vastly different from natural cannabis and can have unpredictable and very, very dangerous effects.
That's what they were smoking in the movie Dune.
Oh, yeah?
No. They were harvesting spice, which was a drug.
Oh, okay.
But interesting overlap.
K2, which can be sold as a cheap alternative to weed, began severely fucking people up in New York around 2012 to the point where it led to a significant rise in hospitalizations. Users of synthetic cannabinoids are 30 times more likely to require emergency medical care compared to natural cannabis users.
Yeah, it's like Kratom now. Kratom is like sold at vape shops, and it's like, man, are you seriously?
Oh, I don't know what that is.
It's like a weed alternative, or maybe, I'm sorry, it might be an opiate alternative that is less harmful, kind of, maybe, not really.
Different type of harmful, maybe?
Different type of harmful.
Those who take K2 can become aggressive, paranoid, delusional, psychotic, or depressed, and totally inaccessible, making it almost indistinguishable from schizophrenia and other mental health issues.
Yeah.
It can be extremely addictive, does not metabolize in the body, and is extremely hard to detect in urine tests. And starting in 2016, Jordan was arrested on K2-related charges at least twice. Yeah,
so Kratom, I wanted to just look it up to make sure, has been used in its native Southeast Asia for centuries to produce opioid and stimulant-like effects, including increased energy and relaxation. If used too much, it'll go the opposite way. So it's like a over-the-counter speedball, basically.
God.
Great.
Sounds horrific.
Yeah, and I'll get a bottle of water, too.
And a Diet Coke.
Yeah.
In fact, around that time, a subway passenger captured Jordan on video dressed mostly as Michael Jackson, apparently missing some of the key elements that day, standing and shouting to no one in particular, quote, "You're a fucking asshole, you're a cocksucker, and you're fucking cheap." Yeah, I said it. I said the shit. I said it. You're fucking cheap, man. End quote.
Have you ever had an experience in person like that?
Yes, I have. I lived in New York City for 7 years.
Very true.
It was on the regular, I would say. 6 months after he was caught on camera, mouthing off to nobody, a student posted a warning on Reddit. Because remember, he was kind of well known. He was like a local celebrity. And the comment on Reddit said this: Try to stay away from the Michael Jackson impersonator if you see him. Used to be all cool, dancing to MJ in the subway train, but as of late, he's become a maniac. Other people began discussing how they'd seen Jordan panhandling, that he appeared homeless, and that they'd never seen him like that. So an escalation.
Yeah.
That same year, Jordan was arrested, the first of 3 separate instances, for exposing himself to subway passengers and, according to court documents, quote, using his hands to stroke his penis in an up and down motion in plain view. This troubling pattern of behavior was just one example of the ongoing struggles faced by many individuals living on the street. Fast forward to 2024, and homelessness in New York City has reached some of its highest levels since the Great Depression.
Really?
Pop quiz. Really, really. How many people were estimated to have been homeless in New York City in 2024? A, 100,000, B, 350,000, C, 600,000.
100,000? 600,000? Well, 350 then.
350.
That's
yeah.
a lot of
Yes.
people out on the street.
Yeah. And, you know,
that is
staggering.
100 times the population of some cities in this country.
It is. Think about when you go to New York City.
I know.
You can't walk a block.
Well, I remember when
so
COVID happened,
Yeah.
and my friend Adam was in there. He lived in there, and he was like, "Dude, it's honest. He's grew up, lived in New York City the past 25 years. Grew up in Staten Island. Like he was a borough guy.
Yeah.
Like he was born and raised in the boroughs, and he was like, dude, I honestly can't even go outside.
Yeah.
Right now at this point because." Most of the time there's, let's say 100,000 people on the street on 3rd Avenue at any given time, and there is 30,000 homeless people. So it's like they're outnumbered. But when it's just you and 10 other people and 30,000 people who live on the street, it's like, this is not okay.
No, it isn't.
Not that you're any safer or less safe. It just, the perception is like, oh, fuck.
It's tragic.
Across the board. It is such a huge problem.
Loads of outreach workers who mostly work for nonprofits contracted by the Department of Homeless Services spread across the city daily to distribute supplies and assess physical and mental health needs, trying to connect those willing to accept help with resources. Jordan, who spent much of his time underground, right, in the subways.
The mole people?
No.
That is a real thing, and that is what they call themselves, and that is what it is called.
Well,
they literally live underground.
I watch Henry
in
Danger
abandoned subway
with my son every night.
Yeah.
And they talk about the mole people, so I thought that's what you were talking about.
No, this is like a community, large community of people that live underground.
Wow.
It's not a pejorative term, like that's what they call like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so sad.
So Jordan spent much of his time underground, and he fell under the purview of the Bowery Residence Committee, or the BRC, which tracks encounters with homeless individuals through an extensive database called Street Smart. By 2017, Jordan's file contained 71 entries documenting his erratic behavior and mental health struggles, including sleeping on trains or in stations while often rejecting help. In April 2019, BRC outreach workers observed that his hair was matted and his skin showed signs of discoloration. On June 14th, he was hospitalized at Beth Israel Hospital due to a K2 overdose and reported, quote, heart and psych issues. On June 21st, while on the J train, a worker documented feces and inappropriate clothing. 6 days later, at the West 4th Street station, he punched a man in his 60s, Philemon Castillo Baltazar, who had been looking at the train arrival monitor. By the fall, BRC workers reported that Jordan appeared confused/disoriented. Jordan also spent time in safe haven shelters, but largely remained on the streets. He'd moved downtown to subway stations along the F line, where homeless individuals found solace in longer subway lines that provided uninterrupted rest. He gravitated towards 2nd Avenue, close to drug hubs and shelters.
I'm a little hung up on the combination of factors that play into these people's lives right now. And the mental health, let's say he's on the verge of psychosis, sleeplessness, poor nutrition, stress, anxiety, depression, chaos, judgment.
Hunger.
Well, I said a lack of nutrition.
Okay.
Like, how are these people supposed to win in any form?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an answer. Jordan's mental decline worsened, clearly, as time went on under these circumstances. Jordan's name was added to the Department of Homeless Services controversial top 50 list. And this is what I was referencing earlier.
They have a list?
So it's a list of the city's most vulnerable homeless individuals at high risk of needing psychiatric intervention, which is maintained by the city's Coordinated Behavioral Health Task Force. I never knew about this list until researching for this case. And the reason why this initiative is controversial is because in November 2022, Mayor Adams directed the police department, emergency medical services, and the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to adopt a broad interpretation of state law permitting the involuntary removal of individuals, meaning this policy allows authorities to detain people against their will, even if they do not pose an immediate threat to others, but appear to be a danger to themselves.
And they have been a threat in the past, probably.
No, that's not what this is saying. It's saying if they have an inability to meet their basic needs, you can involuntarily detain them.
And what do you think about that?
Sometimes I think maybe they don't have the capacity to take care of themselves and to protect themselves.
Or to decide whether or not.
So as a society, we have to sort of think for them because
I can't believe that's controversial, that policy.
I guess, yeah, it is controversial though.
I can't imagine a world in which somebody is in desperate need of help, not able to think on their own, to decide to accept help, whether it's mental health or irritability or pride or whatever. Like these people need help.
Listen, I'm in agreement.
I'm not saying lock them away forever. I don't even know if they get locked away. They might be in a home getting fed and getting rest.
I think it's controversial because if they're not bothering anybody, they're not a threat to anybody, and they are telling you they don't want to go.
Yeah.
You know, they're citizens. They're adults.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
In March 2020, Jordan was admitted to Bellevue Hospital, but the average stay at Bellevue is just 2 weeks as they're not a long-term treatment facility. Plus, as the pandemic took over the city and world, hospital beds were being handed over to COVID patients. Furthermore, outreach programs and teams were scaling back as well. So it wasn't long before Jordan was back on the street. That July, Jordan was spotted on the Delancey Street, Essex Street platform, shirtless and wearing colorful running shorts along with just one black shoe.
Okay.
In June 2021, on a Saturday afternoon, Jordan, who appeared emaciated and shirtless, standing at 6 feet tall, hit a 63-year-old woman named Ann Mitcheltree outside of a deli on 2nd Avenue before running away. And it was like Jordan vanished after that. He wasn't seen for months.
Really?
Until on November 12th, when he assaulted another woman in her 60s near the Bowery Ballroom, causing her to fall and hit her head hard on the pavement and suffered severe facial injuries, including a broken nose. 2 bystanders pursued Jordan, tackled him to the ground, and restrained him until the police arrived. But the 2 incidents were consolidated into a single charge, and Jordan was now facing a felony assault charge and a potential sentence of up to 7 years in state prison if he was convicted. Because over time, Jordan accrued more than 36 arrests, many of which were the sort that people living on the street often amass while they're homeless, like turnstile jumping, trespassing, things like that. And he spent 15 months incarcerated at Rikers Island.
Wow, the hell. You have some information?
Yes, I do. First of all, I have like inside information about Rikers Island, possibly the closest thing to hell on earth you're going to get. Yeah. But that fall, also just for those who may not know, Rikers Island is New York City's largest jail. But that fall, it reached an absolute breaking point. It was during COVID, remember?
Yes.
Men were forced to stand in their own excrement as the toilets completely stopped working.
Oh, my God.
Chaos was the norm. Drug use surged, withdrawals were rampant, and violent fights erupted regularly.
Oh, yeah.
With the pandemic sidelining nearly a quarter of correctional staff, oversight was increasingly remote, meaning officers would monitor the inmates via video instead of actually patrolling the floors. And the court system was nearly paralyzed as well, leaving hundreds of people in legal limbo.
Oh, my God.
Rikers Island, by default, functioned as the city's largest psychiatric facility, with nearly half of its population suffering from mental illness. So for 15 months, Jordan lived in a mental observation unit designated to those who straddled the line between vulnerability and stability. Designated as SMI, or severe mental illness, Jordan shared a dorm with about 30 others, all wrestling with their own psychological challenges. Each day, a healthcare team would make brief check-ins, offer weekly therapy, and provide occasional art sessions, just small gestures of help or humanity in an otherwise completely dehumanizing environment.
Yeah.
Despite the brutality surrounding him, though, Jordan was a quiet presence who stood out, apparently, for his gentleness. He took his medication, he participated in therapy to the extent that it was being offered, and completed cognitive behavioral worksheets. His sort of openness was rare in a place steeped in conflict and paranoia. Clinicians noted his earnest attempts to connect, his polite good mornings, and his occasional Michael Jackson dance routines when an art therapist would bring him a boombox. So he was doing his best.
Yeah.
On February 9th, 2023, Jordan appeared before Judge Ellen Bybin on the 11th floor of 100 Center Street. He'd pleaded guilty to the 2021 felony assault, and his case was now in the Alternative to Incarceration, or the ATI court, a program that was introduced in 2017. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's interesting. I think you would support this. So the ATI court aims to address the underlying issues, such as substance abuse, mental health challenges, and criminal history that leads to repeat offenses.
Yeah.
ATI courts are known as problem-solving courts because they address the specific needs of defendants and aim to resolve the root causes of their criminal behavior.
Imagine that.
Imagine. Instead of traditional sentencing, defendants are connected to personalized support services, including housing, detox programs, anger management, therapy, and medication compliance. The arrangement is clear. Comply with the program's requirements, and the felony charge for Jordan will be wiped clean.
Wiped clean.
Fail to do so, and a prison sentence awaits.
So it's not that he doesn't go to prison, it gets expunged from his record.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I don't know if people know this or not, maybe people don't think this far in advance or this deep. Getting a felony, not only from the standpoint of getting sent away for years, is a life ruiner.
Yeah.
Life ruiner. And I get it, I understand, like, somebody gets out of jail, they were in there for 12 years, I don't want to hire this guy, like, I have enough problem handling my own employees that have been here for years.
Right.
I don't know what to do. Of course you want to help people, but it makes it almost impossible to live a legit life.
Exactly, to come out of that and thrive.
Yeah. So when you hear about people, drug dealers going to jail and they get out and they go back to it, I mean, that makes way more sense to me than them becoming a janitor.
Mm-hmm.
Or a financial advisor, or you know what I mean?
Right. No, absolutely.
You got to check that box, honestly.
Yeah. All parties involved, Jordan's lawyer, the prosecutor, the judge, Jordan himself, and even the victim, agreed that he was an ideal candidate for ATI. So the consensus here was that if Jordan remained on his medication and avoided drugs, stability was achievable. This is a huge point that we should recognize.
Unfortunately, it's also a huge if.
Huge if.
Yeah. Huge
if. And obviously, he goes on to present as the opposite of stable.
But stranger ifs have happened.
Yes. So the plan was to transfer him directly from the courtroom to Harbor House in the Bronx, which is a residential facility specializing in the treatment of individuals with both mental health and substance abuse issues. But less than 2 weeks after entering the treatment facility, he was back on the streets. And on April 8th, 2023, when a BRC worker tried to engage with him on the F train, Jordan exposed himself and urinated. And so now we arrive at that ill-fated day, which is May 1st, 2023. The clock ticked toward 2:30 p.m. as the train screeched to a halt at 2nd Avenue Station. The door slid open, hesitated, then began their mechanical march to close again. At that moment, Jordan, who was gaunt, frantic, desperate, lunged forward, his hand shooting in the narrowing gap of the door, which I've done 100 times.
Yeah. Also, began their mechanical march to close again. You didn't have to say that, but you did. And that's why this podcast
and we appreciate it.
is fucking awesome. Could have said the door's closed. No, they began their mechanical march.
I take a little bit of a shift now because this is the incident.
Yeah.
So I really want to paint a picture. So I appreciate you appreciating it. The doors jolted back open, granting him entry, and he slipped into the uptown-bound F-train car. As soon as he stepped in, Jordan's voice erupted, raw, anguished, a howl that tore through the uneasy silence. He shouted about being hungry and being thirsty, his words a cascade of despair. He screamed that he didn't care if he lived or died, as impassive faces turned to concern around him. Jordan's final words reverberated in that steel chamber. Quote, "I don't mind going to jail and getting life in prison."
Yeah, I mean, hello. What the fuck?
Then, in an instant, chaos unfurled. Daniel Penny surged forward, his body coiled with purpose, and latched onto Jordan, dragging him to the grimy floor of the train. He locked his arms around Jordan's neck, a chokehold tightening like a vice. Jordan's limbs thrashed, his feet pounded the floor in futile rebellion. 2 other passengers then came over, took their hands and pressed down on Jordan to keep him down as he fought against Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Juan Alberto Vasquez, who's a freelance journalist, was on the train, and he lifted his phone and recorded the scene that felt both surreal and savage.
Oh, it's on video?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've seen it described as like a snuff film. It's awful.
Have you seen it?
I have not seen it. I'm sure I could find it.
Yeah.
I'm not going there.
Yeah.
The train's rhythmic clatter seemed to fall away, leaving only the muted gasps and grunts of struggle. The chokehold persisted, relentless, and then stillness. As Daniel released his grip and straightened up, the body beneath him was lifeless.
Do you know, even though you haven't seen the video, what the orientation was of their bodies? Like, was Daniel was Jordan facing up or facing down? Like, was his face on the floor, or was Daniel Penny on the ground with his back on the floor?
That's what it was. So Daniel Penny was on the floor with his back on the ground, and Jordan's back was on like Daniel's chest.
Uh-huh.
And so he had his arm locked beneath his neck, his chin.
Yeah. So at the beginning of this episode, I abandoned my opinion completely because I was like, let me actually find out what happened here.
Well, I'm going to also give you some timestamps.
Okay.
If you want to hold on to that, or you can do it now.
Well, I was going to do an update.
All right, let me have an update.
I just feel like people that have the opinion that this was unjustified have never been in that situation before. To see a giant man screaming about not caring about going to prison for life.
That's
hunger.
That's the phrase that
hunger, thirst, sad. I want to help you. Then you start talking about, I don't care if I go to prison for life. It's like, I don't know how many people were on the subway, but that is, you could say it's not, you've never been in this situation. It's a direct threat.
Well, that's
to
how
everyone.
It was interpreted that way, certainly by Daniel Penny. And there were people on the subway.
I don't think Daniel wanted to kill somebody that day.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think he woke up that morning and felt homicidal.
I hope someone says something.
Right. No, I don't think so either. And there were people on the train who said that they did feel threatened. I don't even know if that's in question, to be honest. At least that's not how I interpret the overarching sort of issues of this case.
So let me caveat.
Okay.
Right now, I feel that he's justified in taking the first move. Okay.
Smart way to phrase that.
Yeah.
Because I think where it gets very gray is the moments after the initial step to neutralize the threat.
It's like George Floyd when he had his knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 40 seconds or whatever it was. It was like, yeah, restrain him. But dude, you look like you're enjoying this.
Oh, God. As Daniel released his grip and straightened up, and I'm going through it, giving you an overview, but we'll get into it a little bit more.
Okay, so he's subdued. 2 people on top of him, Daniel on the bottom.
Right.
Okay.
And when he released his grip finally and straightened up,
Uh-huh.
Jordan's body was lifeless.
Okay.
A witness named Johnny Grima, his voice edged with anxiety, and you can hear this on the recording, said, "Don't leave him on his back, though, man. He might choke on his own spit. Put him on his side."
Okay.
I guess everybody felt he may have just passed out.
But he choked him for 6 minutes?
Another voice, tight with apprehension, said, "You don't have to catch a murder charge. You got a hell of a chokehold, man." The doors hissed open at Broadway Lafayette Station. The train exhaled its passengers, a tide of now shaken souls stepping onto the platform.
Pulitzer. So I just want to add a little bit of context.
Yeah.
As someone who has practiced jujitsu, not a lot, but like enough to know.
Yeah.
It is, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Khabib Nurmagomedov. Holding a choke for 6 minutes is not possible. It's not possible.
I mean, that's what happened.
Then I want to say there was probably phases of the choke where he was like, okay, he's restrained. Maybe he relaxed. Maybe he thought, because Daniel couldn't see him. That's why I asked.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel couldn't see his face.
Can't you feel the body?
You can feel that. He doesn't know that he's, his eyes are bugging out of his head and he's lifeless. He knows that he has stopped. He may think, okay, good. This guy has calmed down.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? All right, good. I'm going to hold him, but I'm not going to continue to choke him. I'm just going to, if he goes to get up, I'm going to have to tighten it again. But I don't care, again, who you are, your arm would burn out. I mean, I want to say 2 minutes max, absolute max of straight force.
Right. Well, I don't know. I couldn't possibly say, first of all, I wasn't there, but I didn't come across it in my research to tell you if he kept that, extreme grip for 6 minutes, or to your point, if he just had his arm wrapped around him for 6 minutes.
However,
long enough to have taken his life.
It wouldn't take that long for him to die.
No, that's what we're getting into in a moment.
Yeah.
But after he loosened his grip, Daniel stood up, brushed the dirt off his shirt, and stooped down to collect his baseball cap from off the floor. Law enforcement arrived approximately 6 minutes after Daniel began the chokehold. They removed Jordan's limp body and delivered him.
So as soon as he was done?
Correct.
Okay.
He only let go when seeing law enforcement was there.
Okay.
And they delivered Jordan's body to the hospital where the final confirmation was officially made. Jordan Neely was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And according to Dr. Cynthia Harris, a New York City medical examiner, cause of death was compression to his neck as a result of the chokehold.
Can I also say something else?
Yeah.
Because like the Eric Garner chokehold death, which was a totally separate tragedy. When you're in that position, first of all, Eric Garner was huge. And the guy, I mean, these people are not black belts in jiu-jitsu. They don't know exactly what they're doing. I've been choked with the blood choke and then also choked on my trachea. If you're off like by a degree, you're crushing the trachea.
Yeah.
And that is also, obviously that'll kill you as well because you can't breathe.
Yeah. Keep that in mind.
Okay.
Okay. I want to now explore who Daniel Penny is. Daniel Penny was 6 years out of high school by this point, having spent 4 of those years serving in the U.S. Marines. He attended high school in West Islip, Long Island, where he played lacrosse, which is so close to us.
Yeah.
During his military service, Daniel earned several ribbons and awards typical of peacetime activity, according to his military records. He rose to the rank of sergeant before leaving active duty in 2021. Apparently, Daniel felt unfulfilled and decided to backpack through Central America for a bit to find his way, so to speak. Wow. He worked for several months until last May at a surf shop in North Carolina near the Marine base, Camp Lejeune, where he was last stationed. Daniel apparently was looking to become a bartender in Manhattan so that he could interact with people for a living. At the time of the incident, he was an architecture student on his way to the gym. But everything changed for Daniel, and of course more tragically for Jordan, when he attempted to restrain a visibly agitated homeless man on a crowded subway. Mm-hmm. According to Daniel, Jordan's behavior posed an imminent threat to the safety of everyone on that train. In his eyes, his actions were not those of aggression, but of self-preservation and defense, an effort to shield himself and his fellow passengers from potential harm.
Yeah.
Daniel claimed that he truly believed that Jordan might attack other passengers and that he intended only to restrain him until the police arrived.
Well, I was going to say, you said potential. I guarantee it felt imminent in that moment.
Of course, what he saw as a necessary intervention in a chaotic moment ignited a firestorm of controversy and debate. Following the tragic incident, Daniel Penny was questioned by police, at which point he indicated that he, quote, just wanted to keep him from getting to people, and described Jordan as a crackhead who was acting like a lunatic. It wasn't until 10 days later, after widespread public outrage fueled by viral video footage of the chokehold and intense criticism over a white man killing a black man and seemingly walking away without consequence, that Manhattan District Attorney Alvin L. Bragg filed a felony complaint charging Daniel Penny with second-degree manslaughter. The filing of a felony complaint for second-degree manslaughter here indicated that the prosecution believed Daniel Penny's actions were reckless enough to warrant criminal liability for Jordan Neely's death. In New York State, second-degree manslaughter, which is a Class C felony, means the defendant acted recklessly, causing the death of another person. Recklessness implies that the defendant was aware of and consciously disregarded a substantial and unjustifiable risk that their actions could cause serious harm or death. And this charge suggests that Daniel's actions, while not premeditated or intentional, were dangerous enough that a reasonable person would recognize the potential for harm.
Okay, so just to clarify, he was not arrested right away?
No, he was not. Yeah, this absolutely baffled me also, and I think this is part of what the outrage was. Daniel's delayed arrest and then his actual arrest and accompanying charge sparked intense public debate, widespread, with some viewing his actions as justified, feeling that Daniel deserved a prize and not prison, and others condemning his actions as reckless, unjustifiable, and homicidal. The case also spurred debates about safety within the city's subway system and failures in addressing homelessness and mental illness, both of which Jordan Neely had struggled with.
Yeah.
Jumaine Williams, who's a Black Democrat who is New York City's public advocate, was among those who questioned why police let Daniel go after questioning him at a precinct just hours after he took a human life on a subway car. Prominent Republicans like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Matt Gaetz praised Daniel Penny and even promoted a fundraiser for his legal fund, which raised more than $3 million.
Wow.
Apparently, Kid Rock donated $5,000. His defense team, Daniel's defense team, wound up including Thomas Kenneth, a Republican who ran unsuccessfully for Manhattan District Attorney in 2021, as well as Stephen Razor. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, Donald Trump Jr., and former Mayor Rudy Giuliani criticized the District Attorney Alvin Bragg for even pursuing the case at all.
But this happened not in that time frame. They weren't elected by then.
I'm just saying, President-elect J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, these people all weighed in recently. This just happened.
Oh, they weighed in recently? They weighed in
very recently.
Okay,
when this happened, and they said, give the kid a medal. Giuliani literally said that. He called Daniel Penny a hero who deserved a medal. So let's talk about the trial. Prosecutors argued in court that Daniel Penny's actions were reckless and that he consciously disregarded the substantial risk of putting Jordan in the chokehold for such a long period of time. Daphne Yoran, who's an assistant district attorney, actually said during trial that Daniel's initial efforts to restrain Jordan might have been even laudable, which means praiseworthy.
Yeah.
But when he continued to choke Jordan long after subway passengers had left the car and he was no longer an immediate threat, his efforts and decision to use lethal force officially became criminal.
That's where I'm landing as well.
Yes. Defense attorneys countered by telling the jury that Daniel's actions were only motivated by a desire to protect the subway passengers. They added that Daniel never intended to kill Jordan, while prosecutors said that an intention to kill is not necessary for a conviction in this case. Daniel's attorneys hailed their client as a protector of the people. Furthermore, they even went so far as to argue that Jordan Neely did not die as a result of the chokehold. They argued that it was impossible to measure how much pressure Daniel had applied. I looked into this. And in the case of a blood choke, or also sometimes referred to as a carotid chokehold, applying around 11 pounds of pressure to each carotid artery can cause unconsciousness within 8 to 13 seconds. Sustaining this pressure for several minutes can lead to death due to brain damage from lack of oxygen.
Yeah.
In Jordan's case, the absence of tracheal damage or spinal injury suggests that Daniel applied the technique correctly, effectively cutting off oxygen by compressing the carotid arteries rather than the airway.
See, now I'm thinking that if he squeezed it hard for 20 seconds and he went limp and he was like, oh, okay, I guess he gave up. I'm going to just chill here until the cops get here. And even if he left some pressure on it, but wasn't burning out his arms totally, I mean, this is all like hindsight is 2020 type of stuff, because I can't imagine in that moment. Like if I was on a subway car with my family and that happened, I don't know. I wouldn't want to be charged with a felony for protecting my family.
Mm-hmm.
I really wouldn't.
Right.
And the adrenaline, I mean.
That's a part of this case as well is, charging Daniel Penny, what would that do for future potential Good Samaritans?
Yeah.
Would people be afraid to take action in similar situations, or where the threat is even more egregious? Would they be afraid to roll the dice? I don't want to get a felony conviction. So this person who looks very, very suspect and everybody around me is freaking out, I'm going to do nothing.
Yeah.
That's an argument. So the chokehold that was used aligns with what Daniel was taught in basic training, where the objective is to incapacitate, not kill.
Mm-hmm.
According to Daniel, he maintained his grip on Jordan until law enforcement arrived, intending only to subdue him, not to kill him.
Yeah.
The goal, he asserts, was to keep Jordan restrained until authorities took control of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So if the chokehold did not kill Jordan Neely, according to the defense, then what, according to the defense, did? Well, according to the defense, Jordan's death was caused by a combination of synthetic marijuana use, mental illness, and sickle cell trait. So sickle cell is a genetic condition that can affect blood cells and overwhelmingly occurs in Black people.
Yeah.
Individuals with sickle cell trait may, under physical or emotional stress, experience complications like reduced oxygen delivery or exertional collapse. Now, people with the trait typically do not have many, if any, sickle-shaped cells or experience symptoms, but blood slides from Jordan's autopsy shared at the trial showed misshapen cells at the time of his death.
I'm sure it was exacerbated by lack of sleep, lack of nutrition, drug use, stress, and chaos.
Right, but do you see what's happening here? That the defense is saying it wasn't the chokehold. It was everything that led to the chokehold that killed him.
Well, it's like saying that again, with George Floyd, he had drugs in his system. Yeah, a lot of people have drugs in their system. The thing was the knee.
The thing was what was happening to him.
The thing was the knee on the neck.
Over the course of 3 days, jurors heard from more than 40 witnesses, including passengers who recounted that Jordan shouted he was willing to die and to go to jail. And he apparently, according to some, said, "Someone is going to die today," before Daniel restrained him. Pop quiz. What was discovered in Jordan Neely's pocket after law enforcement searched his body?
Okay.
A, a muffin. B, a razor blade. C, a few dead roaches.
Ooh. A muffin, a razor blade, or 3 dead roaches? I'm going to give you credit beforehand on this. These are all very different.
Yeah.
It's not like 100,000, 350,000, 600,000. It's
I
like,
get it.
no, I'm not saying anything negative.
Oh, I
I'm
thought
saying
you were, because I know you don't like, you're like, they're just so marginally
no,
different.
that they're all different. I'm saying like the choices are all within the same ballpark. Though.
Yeah.
This is like,
yeah.
Oh God, a razor blade, cockroaches, or a muffin? A razor blade.
No.
A muffin?
Yeah. Yeah. He just had a muffin in his jacket pocket.
2 very different things.
2 very, very different things.
Yeah.
Jurors also heard from Dr. Satish Chundru, who was hired by the defense, as well as Dr. Alexander Sasha Barty, a forensic psychiatrist who testified about Jordan's likely mental health state when he boarded that train that day. According to Dr. Barty, Jordan was experiencing a severe psychotic episode, most likely because of an exacerbation of schizophrenia in the setting of substance use and/or medication noncompliance. And it was Dr. Chundru who proposed that while Daniel choked Jordan, it did not kill him. Daniel did not kill him. Rather, the cause of death was sickle cell crisis, the schizophrenia, the struggle and restraint, and the synthetic marijuana. That was all in quotes, by the way, because that's what verbatim was said.
How do you die from schizophrenia? Is that even a thing?
My interpretation of this, because he's saying the cause of death.
Oh, what caused him to be
Right.
restrained.
Exactly.
Got it.
In response to that, the city medical examiner who performed Jordan's autopsy, who I mentioned earlier, Dr. Cynthia Harris, told jurors that it was her medical opinion, quote, that there are no alternative reasonable explanations for Jordan's death, and that those proposed by the defense were, quote, so improbable that it stands shoulder to shoulder with impossibility.
That's like blaming his death on capitalism or something. Like
It's
they'd be reaching.
they be reaching high.
Yeah.
The jury, made up of 7 women and 5 men, were told before they began deliberating that they had to come to a unanimous decision on the top charge of manslaughter in the second degree before moving on to consider criminally negligent homicide. But Judge Maxwell Wiley changed that order after jurors twice sent him a note saying that they could not reach an agreement after 2 days of deliberation on the higher charge. So the judge dismissed the charge and directed the jury to consider the lesser charge of criminally negligent homicide.
Instead of second-degree manslaughter.
Correct.
Okay.
And to that, after 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict of not guilty.
Okay. See, I didn't even know that.
Right. Okay.
I just know that this happened and it's a hot topic.
Right. The NAACP declared that, quote, the acquittal of Daniel Penny in the death of Jordan Neely has effectively given license to vigilante justice to be waged on the Black community without consequence. Tim Wise, a senior fellow at the African American Policy Forum and a prominent speaker on anti-racism, called Daniel Penny, quote, a racist, classist, ableist murderer. By the time Jordan Neely was laid to rest on May 19th, the city stood divided, each side viewing his death through the prism of its own beliefs. Public opinion was shaped by differing perspectives, influenced by race, views on public safety, mental health, and the boundaries of self-defense. On one side, many viewed Daniel's actions as a tragic manifestation of racial bias and systemic failure. Daniel, a white man, restrained and ultimately killed Jordan Neely, a Black man who was experiencing a mental health crisis. This perspective argues that Jordan's erratic behavior was the result of neglect by institutions that failed to provide adequate mental health services and housing, allowing him to deteriorate publicly. They see Daniel's intervention as a form of vigilantism, an unauthorized and excessive use of force, rather than the compassionate assistance associated with the concept of a good Samaritan. To these individuals who criticize and condemn Daniel Penny, his actions reflect a deeply troubling societal tendency to criminalize and dehumanize Black individuals, particularly those who are poor or mentally ill, while propping up and even congratulating white individuals who respond with force or take matters into their own hands under the pretense of maintaining order or protecting public safety. Black people in distress are viewed as threats rather than individuals in need of help. White people who engage in acts of restraint or aggression are heroes or good Samaritans, their actions excused and even justified. To many, this is an unjust double standard. Conversely, supporters of Daniel Penny frame his actions as a necessary response to protect public safety in an unpredictable and potentially dangerous situation. They argue that Daniel stepped in to diffuse a threat when law enforcement was not present, portraying him as a good Samaritan who acted out of concern for his fellow passengers and did what was necessary. From this viewpoint, his intervention was not about race, but about maintaining order in an environment where public safety concerns are increasingly prevalent. Supporters contend that Daniel should not be vilified for responding to a moment of perceived danger. To them, his actions were heroic and had nothing to do with Jordan's race, background, or circumstances, and everything to do with preventing what he perceived as an imminent threat to the safety of those around him. Essentially, Daniel's actions were a response to behavior, not identity, and an example of how ordinary citizens sometimes need to step in to maintain order and security. On December 14th, Daniel Penny, joined by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, was a guest of Vice President-elect J.D. Vance at the Army vs. Navy football game. Did you see that?
Yeah. See, that to me, so in the instance, I want to say, because this is how I feel. Am I naive? I don't know. I want to say in that moment, race played into it Almost not at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was about the threat 100%. Maybe subconsciously there was some bias, and the classism even makes sense to me. Ableism, I don't even, I don't know. I just know that in that moment, your life is being threatened, not physically, but you don't want to wait till the guy's on top of you.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's too late, maybe. You don't know
Right.
what's going on.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I don't know. But, the people who went to bat for him definitely made it seem like it was about race. Like the people who supported him probably look exactly and act exactly how you would think they look and act.
Wait, the people in Daniel Penny's corner, you're
Yes.
saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Like, getting invited to the
Army-Navy football game. So Vance said in a post on X, quote, Daniel's a good guy, and New York's mob district attorney tried to ruin his life for having a backbone. I'm grateful he accepted my invitation and hope he's able to have fun and appreciate how much his fellow citizens admire his courage. Not all the citizens, but...
Yeah. Well, I would not have wanted to be on that jury.
No.
Second of all, the problem with making a decision on this, a final decision, is that both arguments, not the sickle cell thing or whatever, but like the argument to like, was he justified? Did this man deserve to die? Not deserve, but both are true and neither are true. It's somewhere in the middle. It's like, if this was present, then this wouldn't have happened, or if this never, well, it did, and it wasn't, and it was, and everything. It was a unique circumstance in which somebody tragically lost their life.
Yes.
That's the bottom line.
Right. So, again, not everybody feels that he deserves a medal, and Daniel Penny has actually been named in a lawsuit by Jordan's father, Andre Zachary, for negligent contact, assault, and battery that led to his son's death.
The guy who disappeared from his life?
Yeah. Jordan's father, Andre Zachary, requested damages, quote, in such sum as a jury may find reasonable, fair, and just. I don't know if they had a relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like separated parents. I mean, doesn't to me sound like he was a very hands-on dad. I do know that throughout Jordan's homelessness, he would sometimes see his father, who would give him...
I thought he left when he was 5 and then never...
fully vanish is my understanding, but he wasn't a father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this case obviously is more than a singular tragedy / singular act of heroism, depending on your position. It's a raw reflection of a society at war with itself. 2 lives intersected on a subway car, one burdened by invisible wounds, the other propelled by a sense of duty or fear. And in that moment, the fractures within the lattice of societal norms were violently exposed. The outcome was a man left lifeless on a train floor and another man tethered to a choice that reverberates far beyond that day.
Yeah.
This was not just an encounter between 2 people. It was an intersection of mental illness, public safety, race, justice, and systemic failure, a collision of forces that society has yet to reckon with.
Yeah.
The outrage and the defenses, the finger-pointing and the rationalizations reveal how deeply entangled we are in questions of who deserves protection, who is seen as a threat, and who gets left behind. There are no victors here, only consequences.
Yes.
True justice demands that we do more than assign blame. It requires us to confront the conditions that allowed this to happen in the first place. Anything less would be an invitation for history to repeat itself again and again and again. So that's the case.
That was, I'll be honest with you, saying it at the end because only real ones are here right now. That was a brave choice.
This case?
Oh, yeah. It's like covering the Kyle Rittenhouse fucking situation, you know?
It deserves to
It does. I believe so.
It deserves to have airtime. And I hope to bring more facts to the table than maybe a lot of people, have heard.
Yeah, I don't think you did anything close to what Fox did with it or CNN did with it. It's like it was, because over there you get
one side of the story.
One side of the story spun one way with one tone of voice, with one either like justified tone or arrogant tone or this or that. It's like, man, can you just give us the information?
Yeah.
Like almost read it. Like read it. Don't even do anything with your voice.
Right.
To let us know how you feel about something and your eyes and you roll your eyes. It's like, just give us the information and we'll decide for ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where it is, right? Everybody listening, you can decide for yourself where you stand, if anywhere, on
Yeah, you also don't have to stand anywhere.
on this case. But at the end of the day, it was a tragic case. That breaks my heart.
Yes.
So anyway, do you have, please say yes, a Tank's titty for us?
God, I have the Tank's titty of all titties.
The tittiest of all titties?
It is a whopper.
Oh.
It is a flopping whopper.
I had a weird visual in my head just there.
It is a malted milk ball.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. Whatever. I don't know what I'm doing. So it is, I'm going to try and get it out in one piece if I can. Okay. So the other night, as I was falling asleep, I was breathing, right?
No shit. I'm sorry. Only you can have fun on this podcast.
Intentionally breathing. Like breathing in, breathing out, monitoring it in through the mouth, in through the nose, out through whatever. Slow, trying to do it slow. The problem was that my nose was too clear.
What?
Hear me out.
I'm trying.
It was too clear. So it was like I couldn't bring it in slow and make it go out slow because it was too clear.
Do you breathe out of your nose as well?
I do.
Or out of your mouth? Okay.
So anyway, it was a metaphor for me with my life because when things are too easy, I feel like I need to add some resistance so that I feel like I'm doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So that I feel like, okay, there's a little challenge here.
Yeah.
Like
your other does the same thing. I told you that, Firefighter Dave.
Yeah.
He stirs thing up. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm manufacturing drama.
Well, resistance makes you, it's like when in, man, I'm on one today. It's like when in Interstellar, when he's going down to the water planet and Tars is like, do you want me to take the controls? He's like, no, I need to feel the air on the wings. Like, I don't know where I'm going if I don't have any resistance. It's too easy. Everything's too easy. However, I am going to do my best to, instead of resistance adding or clogging things up like my nose, just breathe slow with a clear nose and do that. Just live life with a clear path in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a guy who I know who talks all the time about, a 10-pound wheelbarrow. You have a 10-pound wheelbarrow in life. I don't know if it's barrel or barrow.
It's barrow.
It's barrow.
I was impressed with you yeah.
Wheelbarrow. And if you walk around with 9 pounds of stuff in a 10-pound wheelbarrow, you get the smallest little tragedy or inconvenience in your life. And you're like, oh, God. If you walk around with nothing in there, you could get hit with a 7-pound life event. And you manage it with grace and dignity because you're not weighed down by nothing. Mm-hmm. Like things that you've put on your plate or not cleared off your plate. You just left. You thought they'd go away. They're not going away.
Yeah.
You got to move them. You got to take care of stuff. So, yeah, that's my titty is
I like it.
Just surrender to the ease with which life presents you sometimes.
Yeah. Just don't make shit intentionally hard because you can't deal with a clear path.
Because life happens anyway.
And just take it slow on that path.
Whether it's clear or not.
Right. You don't have to sprint just because it's clear.
You don't have to sprint and you don't have to cause problems. Life will present you with plenty of problems on your own. And in the interstitials, nice. Enjoy the open nasal passages.
I love it.
That's my titty.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's your titty and your nosy.
Titty-tastic. All right. Well, again, thank you for doing all. That was incredibly informative and engaging and
thank you.
Well done.
That was really kind of you to say because it was a long one and you were in it with me and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So thank you. And thank you to our listeners.
I think I had a birthday while we
No, you're so funny, Tank.
I missed it.
I owe you a gift. That's
yes,
the
you
upside.
Do. Thank you very much. Okay. No, I'm kidding. It was amazing. I don't know how long we've been recording. It doesn't matter. It was all necessary. So thank you for doing all that work. And we will see you guys at the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.